27 years ago this summer, Philip Zimbardo, a psychology professor at Stanford University, tried to find out. And what he found is being taught today in psychology classes all over the country. It's been called the Zimbardo effect. He started by putting an ad in local newspapers for volunteers. Out of the 75 responses, he chose what he considered to be the 24 most sane and stable. He then set up a prison environment, making half of them guards, the other half prisoners. The division was arbitrary. This is the classified ad that Professor Zimbardo ran in Palo Alto newspapers. Male students needed for a psychological study of prison life. $15 a day for 1 to 2 weeks. What were you hoping to find?
What happens if you put good people in an evil place? Does the place or situation win or the people win?
What Zimbardo did was set up his own evil place in the basement hallway of the Stanford Psychology Building, a mock prison where some students would lose their freedom and others would gain total authority. It was all recorded on videotape. So this was a cell.
This was a cell with 3 people, with 3 beds, and there was not room for anything else.
You know what I don't see here? Well, how did they bathe?
They didn't bathe on a regular basis.
The student prisoners who volunteered for the experiment didn't just show up at the university. Zimbardo got the Palo Alto police to arrest them, frisk them, handcuff them, and charge them with a made-up felony.
And typically there were neighbors all around, and in some of the cases, the boys would say, oh, it's just an experiment.
At the police station, they were fingerprinted and isolated in a detention cell. Then, blindfolded, they were brought to the university. And even though they knew it was just an experiment, the students were still intimidated, and that incongruity would last the whole study.
And it took them a while to realize that this is what they had volunteered for. But throughout there's this fine line between reality and illusion.
Zimbardo set it up so the students lost their names and identities.
This is the prison uniform, a number on the front, a number on the back, and that's how they could only be referred to.
And no underwear.
And no underwear.
And a closet was converted into solitary confinement.
And they were often here with no clothes on or with a towel when they were being punished.
Zimbardo appointed himself prison superintendent and gave his guards only 2 instructions: maintain law and order, but no physical violence.
The first thing the guards said is, we need rules. And so they set about to make up this systematic number of rules.
The guards made the rules.
Oh, absolutely.
Not you.
Oh, no, not at all.
Smoking is a privilege. Smoking is a privilege.
David Eshelman was one of the guards. He thought he knew how to be one because he had just seen the movie Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman and Strother Martin.
And he had that great line where he'd come out to address the prisoners, and he would say, "Now, men, I can be a nice guy.
Or I can be one real mean son of a bitch. It's all up to you."
It's all up to you.
And that was in your head?
Absolutely.
Do you think you took on that swagger and that personality? You do?
I took on a southern accent. I wore the mirror sunglasses.
I've got a pair. Oh. You
Now,
do look like a sheriff, I must say, or warden, whatever.
Since the eyes are the, what do they say, the doorway to the soul or the window to the soul, you can't see me. I can see you. So I'm a little bit intimidating because you don't know what I'm thinking or the fact that I'm looking right into your eyes.
Probably for another year after the experiment, I disliked mirrored sunglasses intensely.
Prisoner Jim Rowney remembers that the first day was more like playing a game, but then things changed.
Hey! I don't want anybody laughing.
When did you begin to really know you were a prisoner?
I think it was the very first night where we got woken up 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning and told to form up and do menial things, push-ups. I'm a good sleeper. I didn't take kindly to that.
On the morning of the second day, prisoners in Cell 1 rebelled, ripping off their numbers and barricading themselves in their room. Guards responded with a freezing fire extinguisher spray. They stripped the prisoners, forced ringleaders into solitary, and reassigned others to different cells.
There were times when we were pretty abusive, getting right in their faces and shouting at them. And that was part of that whole atmosphere of terror that we set up.
Yeah, and no one told you to do that.
No.
This was kind of a natural thing that just evolved.
Right.
With the power that you were given.
Right.
The guards would get bored. And so they began to play with the prisoners. Prisoners began to be their plaything. And each day, what you did the previous day was old and was not interesting. So they kept thinking of new things to do to entertain themselves.
But the things became crueler?
Systematically crueler, more sadistic.
Did you think that you would have an experiment that would show changes in these people as fast as happened?
Oh, not at all. What we were unprepared for was the intensity of the change and the speed.
On the second afternoon, one of the rebellion leaders, prisoner 8612, had had enough.
Jesus Christ, I'm burning up inside, don't you know?
His plan was to pretend he was sick, but the prison officials didn't buy it. They called him a wimp and sent him back to his cell. 8612 became hysterical.
I can't say that. I'm f***ed up. I don't know how to explain it. I'm all f***ed up inside. Out! Out now!
He began to get more and more disturbed, irrational thinking, screaming, out of control. So then ultimately we had to release him, and that was like in 36 hours.
Friends and relatives were scheduled for a visit on the third day, so Zimbardo ordered the cells to be cleaned. Prisoners were allowed their first sponge bath and better food.
We were told, I think, don't tell them anything about what really is going on.
And you didn't?
I didn't.
A few of the guards were more lenient than others. David Eshelman was one of the harshest.
You get down here and do 10 push-ups.
He used mind games to humiliate prisoners, like forcing them to say they loved each other.
I love you, children. Get up close. Get up close. I love you, children.
I did take on a role. I was very much involved in theater at the time and was studying acting.
You're trying to tell me that wasn't a natural thing?
That's a good question. For me personally, I don't think it's a natural part of my personality. It's really the opposite of the way I conduct myself now.
How harsh do you think you were?
I think that I was positively creative in terms of my my mental cruelty upon the prisoners.
My sense is that's a level of sadism that goes above an acting role. That is, you know, the belligerence, the having them do push-ups, the sit-ups, cleaning toilet bowls, it goes beyond the constraints of the role.
You never had second thoughts about the way you were acting. You never said, God, what's happening? I'm turning into a monster here.
I think there were a time when I said, how far will these prisoners let me go? Because the one thing I noticed about them is that they never stood up for themselves and their own rights or dignities. And all any prisoner would have to say is, hey, this is an experiment, knock it off, okay? And I would have stopped.
Did you ever say to him, hey, I'm just another college guy like you. What do you know, get off it?
Remarkably, no. I think that's probably the most surprising thing to me.
Do you have any idea why? You're not the only one. No one ever said it in the entire experiment.
No, I don't. We just forgot to say, I quit. It was a job. No one ever said, I quit.
By the fifth day, 4 prisoners, one by one, had broken down to such a degree they were released. Jim Rowney was next.
I think that I was a kind of a picture of stability throughout most of the experiment. And when I showed signs of cracking, of not doing well, of desperation and severe depression, I think that that's when they started realizing things were out of control.
They got scared.
I think so.
Why didn't Professor Zimbardo stop the study? Because he was not only a researcher, he was acting as the prison superintendent, and even he succumbed to the cruelty of the environment.